Hello everybody, Jerome Wright here, and once again you're joining me on my Jerome Wright YouTube channel here on YouTube. I'm going to be doing another video here relating to Mount Rushmore and the carved heads. Okay, most people don't realize it or know that these heads were carved by one of the highest ranking Ku Klux Klan members that you could possibly ever become. This guy, his name was Goodson Borglum, and he later went on to become a sculptor, and he ended up doing these heads. He actually did another carving of I believe of those horses, but I forget what the location was, but you can actually look it up. Just Google the guy that carved that sculpted the Mount Rushmore heads. He ended up dying later on, and I believe his son picked up on the job of finishing the carvings on these heads. However, the message here is very loud and clear. I mean, because this guy ended up being commissioned to do these heads, and each one of these presidents up here, from Washington, from Thomas to Jefferson, Thomas, Theodore Roosevelt, and Lincoln, they all stood against everything that Belgium stood for. Belgium didn't believe in the freeing of slaves. Belgium didn't believe in rubbing elbows with minorities, and Belgium didn't believe in taking advice from minorities. And these guys had a different view for America than what Belgium had. So how in the world does this man is the most unlikeliest candidate to carve these heads? So it tells you that there's some type of insane conspiracy behind this guy being able to become into the authority to be able to carve 4 presidential heads, the highest authority of America here, in each one of these heads, to give this man the honor, Belgium, a racist, a supreme racist, to carve these heads. And to let you know how powerful this man Belgium was. This guy was, you know that they have in the Ku Klux Klan, they have Grand Wizards. The Grand Wizard, you would think that that's where the power stops at. With the Grand Wizard, you would say, well, okay, the Grand Wizard, there's nothing after the Grand Wizard. Well, this guy Belgium was the one that actually selected. His power was so high within the Ku Klux Klan that he actually was the one that actually okayed and approved and initiated Grand Wizards. So he was up above all of them. So that's how high this guy was in ranking for Ku Klux Klan. He was the uno numero Ku Klux Klaner. All right. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, the next thing that we want to discuss here about these carved heads is that I've been always drawn to them for other reasons, and I have other videos up, but I'm not going to discuss that here now because I'm only going to do a half-an-hour video here. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what I did new, what I found that is new. Over here with Washington, I already showed you that there's a set of lips right here that's encoded in his hair right there. That's a set of black man lips. So I thought that it was a set of black man lips because it has that look to it of being different of what you would expect for a minority set of lips to look like right here. All right. But I found another scenario for which those lips actually fit, because what I found out about Washington is that Washington's whole hair, it creates, you know what that creates? It creates the mask of an executioner. And that's the reason why these lips were right underneath his hairline here. This is an executioner's mask. And if you look or Google this this image, you will notice that there's lines cut in, and you would agree with me and say, hey, you know what, Jerome is right with this. Now, I didn't just run into the fact that this is an executioner mask and there was lips there. I found the lips first. Then I noticed that there was a rope around Washington's neck. Okay. Now, how all of this comes in, and you saying, well, Jerome, that's a lot. And then you can't. No. Well, you have to look at this overall picture. Now that I put all of these pieces together, I got the rope, I got the lips, and I got the executioner's mask. Now look at Washington's face in this image. Over here on the side of Washington's throat, there's like a lymph node. There's a swelling at his throat. Washington, if you look at all of the images of Washington, Washington does not have this clump, this big lump on the side of his neck like this. It looks like he actually has a thyroid or something going on here. Now, remember, Washington died from a severe throat infection. They said that it came from him going outside back to back in an extreme cold, and then they did this bloodletting thing on him, and it caused for him to actually die. And he had 3 doctors at his deathbed. One wanted to give him an emergency trach to put a hole in his throat so he could breathe, and the other 2 were against it. All right, so if you read into the story of that, that's what you would come up with. But this carved thing, this carved head of his, is showing you that there was some type of choking or asphyxiation going on where his wind was cut off. Because here I'm showing you that there's a rope around his neck. Then I'm showing you that there's an executioner's mask, meaning that hangings, where hangings take place, are a beheading. So you have both scenarios that an executioner fits here. There is the executioner mask that's encoded in his hair. It goes all the way over across his head, all the way over to the other side. And if you get to this side over here, you would notice that it tails up. So this is not his hair. This is an executioner's mask that is laying across his hair. And I'm going to go to an So imagine an executioner taking his mask off and laying the mask without the head in it across the head, and that's what you have here. And then there's the lips, the encoded lips right there. So now when we look at our executioners, think of the executioner as not, we look at an executioner as not being a human being or looking these executioners, and you look at them, they look like they might be, you know what I mean, like some type of mongoloid or something of not of this, like a freak, like a freak. You know what I mean? Like a mongoloid or so like that there. And I think that this is what they were trying to describe with this. And this is what they did. They took it. If you Google 18th century executioners and masks and all of that, and those pictures, those eerily pictures of that, just Google this here and look at the lips and then look at the executioner mask now that I pointed it out to you. Now, the rope around his neck, everything fits here now. And then the swelling. A person with a rope around their neck will swell at their neck. And this is actually what is actually happening here. When you go to Washington, look at this big bulge on the side of his neck. So it's telling you that he's being choked to death. Now, they're describing how this man died. And not just that, they're stating that these people, they're showing for each, not just Washington, but each president, how they were executed in sense, meaning that they didn't die naturally, as the record reflects, because they're taking credit. And you know, there's the Klansmen there. Who's taking credit? It's the Ku Klux Klan. They're taking credit for these presidents' death, these 4 presidents' death. And this is like these are like these heads are hanging on a trophy on a mantle, suggesting that, you know how you go into a person's house that hunts, and for trophies they have the moose's head, the lion's head, the bear's head, all of this going on. It's like they're hanging their heads here as trophies. And they're stating this is a message board. We, the Ku Klux Klan, calls for the death of these 4 presidents. Don't mess with us. Our power is great. Not just that. Not that did we hang their heads. We called for their death, but we carved their heads. We hung these heads on their mantle. This is the message behind this. Now, I'm going to keep going. So we got the swelling. We're at Washington. I'm done at Washington here. We got the rope around the neck. We got the executioner, and there's the executioner's mouth right there, encoded in his hair right there. I'm at the tip of it. And then you got the executioner mask going over there. So this is execution. Beginning at Washington, talking about there's an execution going on. Execution of what? Execution of presidents. All right. So the executioner's mask. I challenge anybody to go and look at this Washington's image. And you look at this and you see the set of lips underneath the hair right here. That's the first telltale sign. And then the rest of it, you'll notice that this nose piece and all that, this is a covered up face of an executioner. This is the executioner's mask. Then you see the rope around, and then you go to the swelling at the side of the neck, showing you that this man was executed. Okay, now you say, well, if he had these doctors and stuff at his bed, you know, there's a reaching power. Just like with the Michael Jackson thing, when they said this Dr. Conroy took in calls for Michael Jackson's death, a lot of people will probably think that there was a conspiracy behind it all. Well, if these Klansmen have this type of power to get out and reach out, imagine back then where there was no Secret Service and all of that. I mean, a doctor could be on the take. Our doctors could be on the take, or the doctors could be Klansmen. I mean, it didn't take much for this. So you have the Klansmen, and I mean the Ku Klux Klan in this image stating that they called for this man's death, and they're telling you that no, he didn't die through the asphyxiation. They're saying that they called for his strangulation. They're stating that they caused for it. So basically, they're saying that they caused for his death. Now, President Washington was purposely bled to death. Now, they said that back then that bloodletting was a good, that it was an acceptable practice. Well, if a person is being bled out more than what they should have done, because he was bled out at 50%. Now, imagine it being purposely done for the cause of this Ku Klux Klan group. You see what I'm saying? So regardless of if Washington's condition became medically on his own through his own doing, it was an opportune moment for the cause of his death to be exaggerated or being taken to the next level and be caused by these doctors or whoever was in the room with Washington at the time. Because this is what this message is stating. This message states that no, Washington did not die naturally. It's stating that Washington was executed. And this is why the executioner's mask is hung over his head. And that's why the lips are there. And that's why there's a rope around the neck indicating that he was choked out, that he was killed. And this is why you have the lump at the side of the neck indicating how he died. And this is the way that he's died. I'm going to go over here to Thomas Jefferson. All right, Thomas Jefferson has a Ku Klux Klan man right next to him, encoded. There's the hood, there's the face, there's the arm going over, and Thomas Jefferson died, believe of he lived to, I think, 83. They said a ripe old age. Okay, now the only thing that I can be able to see here about Thomas Jefferson is that I noticed that up here on I have on this side, there's the hood on his in this hood, in his hair on this side. It looks like he has a part down the middle, but on this side there's the hood of the Ku Klux Klanner. There's a Klanner there, okay, and on this side. Now on this part of his head, however, on this half, you know what this looks like to me? It looks like an organ, and the organ that it looks like a heart. And I'll tell you how I arrived at that, because I came from this side, because Roosevelt died of liver failure, of blood or lung, or I believe it was lung, not liver, I'm sorry, by blood clots getting in his lung, and he died. Now over here, I noticed that it appeared to be on the side between him and Lincoln, that this appeared to be a shape of a lung when I Googled it, and I'll go into that. But on this side, there's another shape in his index here, over right next to his eye, and I'm gonna go to that. And that's how I arrived at this being an organ right here on Thomas Jefferson's side, over here on this side of his head, closer to Washington, between Washington, that executioner's mask, and the temple and the hairpiece right here of Thomas Jefferson. This appears to be an organ which I'm identifying it as being the heart. Again, we have this indication that now Thomas Jefferson, there is not no history about how he truly died. But if this is the case of what I'm stating, and you know, people will be able to go and verify this, other people. Now, and if everybody agrees that this is a heart, then the true cause of his death then would be through a heart. But nobody knew that, so how will the Klanners know this? That he died through, unless they caused his death. You see what I'm saying, people? So when you Google this, between what I'm calling the executioner's mask here, which would be George Washington, it dubs as George Washington's hair, where it comes together to meet the hairline, George Washington's hair meets the hairline of Thomas Jefferson, it appears to be a heart organ here, which stops at the center of the head, right in there. This is what I'm describing here. So I'm saying that they're stating that this man died through complications with his heart. However, online or in searches, nobody knows his true cause of death. But here, I'm seeing an image of what could be that of a heart right here, and that would be over his right eye, go straight up or even lined with his nose, and this would appear to me to be a heart right there. When you come over to the other side of Thomas Jefferson's head right here, there is a Ku Klux Klan guy that is encoded in the side of his face right over here. The hoodie, everything, and and there's the face, and I'm sure you can see that from there. Okay, I can come in right quick closer. I'm gonna come in so you can get a good look at that. There's a Ku Klux Klan guy there. I draw the face in pretty good. Okay, I got pictures online. There's his chin. There's his mouth. There's his nose. There's his face. I even put KKK in the hoodie. And it's a hoodie that goes around. The hood goes around the neck. You see how that is? That little opening right there, like a drooping neck piece like there. Like, you know, you see that? Everything, this is not me exaggerating this image. I'm just putting the lines that are there where it has the hood going around the face, the arm coming up. There's a hoodie here, and then the arm comes across from that guy, reaching across the head. And now this is between Thomas Jefferson and Theodore Roosevelt. The Klanner's arm reaches across Roosevelt's hair. Now they uses Roosevelt's hair to create the forearm and a hand, which is right here, across Theodore Roosevelt's head. Now I can't do it in this image, but right here where I have the part of the Klansman's sleeve right here, or part of the robe, right here is a piece of carving, like if it's missing or intentionally left out, and that would be at the right eye corner of Theodore Roosevelt, and it's exactly the shape of the organ that Roosevelt had complications with, which would be a lung. And that's what this shape is right here. It's the shape of a lung, and I'll go into some more of that. Now, you have a hair and fingers. Those hair and fingers seemingly match the identical image search of when you go into looking at John Wilkes Booth. The way he holds his hand, it's like a trigger finger. John Wilkes Booth is in there in one of those pictures, and he's holding a stick, and he has his finger like over the piece, like similar like that there, where like you're holding a stick in your hand, like you're pinching it. And this is what this seems to be with this hand, which is right here, with that stick that John Wilkes Booth is holding. If you look at some of the online pictures and look at his fingers, and you can almost equate or realize that this hand is almost similar to the way that John Wilkes Booth's hand would have been. Now, also right here, where that hand is, where that hand stops. Again, this is the first organ. Now, this here on this side I said was a lung, but I realized this actually here looked like to the temple of the left side, which is the left side would be between Lincoln and Roosevelt. That this right here at the end of this hand that I described, which would be dubbing as the hair right here, as for Roosevelt. What that hand is, it dubs as a hair. Down the hair dubs as a hand. It appears to be the organ of a lung right there as well too. So both sides, you can take your choice. Either here is the shape of a lung you can find, or right here at this temple, which would be a lung, which would be right just above the left eye, or you can come over here to the right eye on that side, and this seems to be a lung portion as well too. So, and this is how this man died. This man died from blood clots in his lung. So you can equate with either one of these shapes on either side of his eye as being the shape of a lung. So that's how he died. So you have each one of these presidents so far. Now, this here, Washington, I'm dead on. I'm dead on. I'm spot on. There's no refuting that. The executioner's mask, the lips, the swelling at the neck, and the rope around the neck, and the lungs. Okay? All of that is describing identically. Now, I may miss on Thomas. Now this may not, it could not, I may not, or may be hard. We'll be able to go from there as people looking on this and say, people say, hey, listen, Jerome, you're right. That is a heart. I know, I can identify with that. I'm a medical expert. I know that that's the shape of a heart. Again, with Thomas Jefferson, persons can Google and look in on this and say, look, Jerome, you're right. That's a lung. Now I'm dead on. Now these two here are up in the air. Thomas Jefferson and Roosevelt. But Washington, I'm spot on. Now I'm going to Lincoln, where I'm going to be spot on. With Lincoln. Lincoln's hair. Now, believe me when I tell you, people, Renaissance artists and sculptors, they use hair to encrypt things and encode things. And this is the reason why you have the executioner's mask in Washington's hair, in his hairline. And you have the Ku Klux Klaner right here in Thomas Jefferson's hair. Oh, that's another thing that I'm right about too with Thomas Jefferson. The way the Ku Klux Klaner is encoded between Jefferson and Roosevelt. So that's spot on for them as well too. Now I just don't know about those organ parts, where being a heart right there over top of the right temple of Thomas Jefferson, and there being this lung thing over here on either side at the temples and at the eyes and the temples and the forehead temple over here for Roosevelt. Okay, now we come to Lincoln. With Lincoln in his hair, the identical shape of the gun that killed him, the Derringer, the butt, the trigger mechanisms, the firing mechanisms, all of that stuff there, the barrel, all of that stuff is right there with Lincoln. Okay. I can bring it in. Now, what's amazing about this is that with Lincoln, there's a circle right here at the side of his head. What in the world? There's a circle that protrudes out from his temple. At first, I thought that it was an exit wound, but it's not an exit wound, because the ball that went into his head from the Derringer never exited. So what could that lump be? So there's a lot of online searches with John Wilkes Booth, where Booth is in a circle in a picture. So I thought that it could possibly be that. And then it dawned on me that no, that's too far-fetched. And what it dawned on me is what that circle is. That circle represents the ball from the Derringer, the bullet that went into Lincoln's head. And what this is representing is that it being inside of his head. That ball from this gun, which is here, being inside of his head, which is also consistent with that being a hematoma, which would be brain swelling and swelling. So it's telling you the swelling from the inside created that indentation. And that's why in this carving of Lincoln, there is a circle right here that should not be there. And this is how I can describe that circle and why it's there. It's a hematoma, which is caused from the brain swelling in the bullet, which is in his head, to be out. And then when you Google the heads, you will see that there is a carving here that should not be there. It's unusual, and it's an abnormal carving that is inconsistent with the carvings of this man's head. But my description of it describes it perfectly, because we have the Derringer gun, and the circle bullets that got those pellets that go on that gun would be that circle, and or consistent with that bullet being in his head and showing a hematoma, or a person describing that man died with a bullet and it was still in his head. And that's what this is all about. The next thing with this is that this stairwell casing, nobody is climbing this stairwell up here. Nobody is going up this way. This is not for nobody to go up and see these heads, these presidential heads. Right here, there's a stairwell casing. That stairwell casing represents the stairwell casing that led up to the theater booth in the Ford's Theater Center, where there was a killing. The killing of who? The killing of President Lincoln. And there is a shadowy figure in a suit right here. Right here. If you Google this, pull in close, you will see that there's a shadowy figure, and you will see that the shadowy figure has their hands inside of their coat, in the same way that all of these pictures with John Wilkes Booth are taken. And you can go into online, these 18th century pictures are taken. And that's what that actually is. Now, I'm going to go into some of the pictures that I have here before I run out of time. Okay? We're at 24 minutes. I'm going to go into some of the pictures that I have. Okay. There's that circle right here. Okay, that circle represents either the hematoma he got from the brain swelling, this is the gun, or it represents the slug that was still in his head, and that's why that's at the temple. Now, granted, he was shot from the back of the head, but the bullet would have traveled towards the front from him being shot to the back, and this is representing that slug right there inside of his head, or a hematoma, a brain swelling. And that shadowy figure in a suit right here is standing right next to him, as I showed you. I'm going to keep going. Oh, hold on. Don't go no, hold on. Where we at here? Okay. I'm going to keep going. Where we at? Oh, can you see that? Oh, yeah. You see that Klansman here. Right here. Look at this. You see that Klansman right there? The hood on this side. This side of the hair doesn't even match this side of the hair of Thomas Jefferson. That's how you kind of know that this is a hooded figure reaching over the head of Roosevelt. See that? Here's the sleeve, all of the sleeve area here, the arm. See the hand? Look at this. See the face? This that shadowy figure. See that there? And this is none of my highlights. See that? There's the drooping sleeves there. Okay, there's the head. See him reaching over. All right, we're gonna keep going. You know, this reminds me of the guy that just came out, and there's the Derringer. Oh, I got to go back to that too. The Derringer, notice his bottom piece right here, the way the barrel is right there. See that? I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna show you something with that. I don't know if it's in this one. Look at this. The same exact setup with that Derringer right here. The barrel, all of that, the mechanism, everything is identical to that Derringer. Okay, I got to keep going forward. I'm going to get through all of this. I don't want to go over my time here. I don't know if I... All right, so that, everything that is there with Lincoln's hair, encoded in Lincoln's hair, is identical to his Derringer here. Okay, keep going. Here's a hematoma on a guy that's swelling over the same area, which would have been with Lincoln. That's on Lincoln. If you go to the Lincoln's carving of the presidential heads, that swelling right there, that circle is exactly what is on Lincoln's head. Now this guy here has a hematoma. There's a swelling from trauma to the head. This is a hematoma. This is exactly what is being described with Lincoln in that head carving. If you go there, that circle size protrusion on Lincoln's head in the presidential head carvings done by that white supremacist says the same thing. Now here is a Derringer, the same gun that Lincoln was shot with, and here's one of those pellets. That protrusion on Lincoln's head in the carving could also represent this ball, which comes from this gun, but inside of his head, shot inside of his head, either flattened the way it would be on impact, or it calls for a hematoma in his head, and that's what this is describing on that carving. Okay, that's the same, again, same type of gun that shot Lincoln. Here's Booth right here with his hand in his coat. Look, this is the guy that shot Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth. Notice that he has his hand in his coat. Well, people, that shadowy figure on the Lincoln, on the carvings, has the same exact thing. A guy in a suit and with his hands in his shirt, the same exact thing. So they carved it in there as a trophy, as a monumental piece. There's the gun again, the same type of gun that looks like that. Okay, so that image of John Wilkes Booth, and here's where his hands, where he's holding his hand right here on the stick. That there reminds me of the same exact way that the hand is encoded over the head of Thomas Jefferson. That I showed you that was the hand of John Wilkes Booth. Holding his stick is in this kind of way. That's what I was trying to describe right there. Okay, where we at here? 28 minutes. I got to keep going here. I'm going to try to cut this off at 30 minutes. There is a lung. This is the same exact shape right here, this half of lung, as what could be described with Roosevelt, on the side of Roosevelt's face. This is the same exact, on his right side between Thomas Jefferson and Roosevelt, right just underneath by his eye, is this shape of a lung. So this is describing how he died. Each one of these presidents, the way that they died is described, and the Klan is stating that they had a hand in on it. They knew how they're saying that that they were not accidental deaths. are natural deaths, this is another image that can be equated to what's on the right side, no, left side of Roosevelt. Okay, over top of his head. It could actually be this image as well too, with the tail on it on this side here. This image looks like it's on the entire thing, look like it's on the right side of his head where I pointed to you. So you can actually check that out as well too. They're stating that these men did not die a natural death. Now, what I just showed you, that the image of that other lung, that was a lung too that I just came from the, that looks to be right here on Roosevelt, right there. The entire thing with the overhanging, the lip, and everything. And we're at 30 minutes. I'm gonna get through this and get through all my images, and I'm gonna close this video out after that. So everything I just described, I'll put a little bit more in writing. Oh, there's the executioner's mask right there. This is my idea. That executioner's mask that is hanging over Washington's head, this is the executioner's mask. It's a leather type mask, and that's what the idea that I'm trying to drive with you at. Okay, and I'm going to keep going with that. And there's the gun. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going because I won't have time to add this in of how they were talking about President Obama. Greentree hung this banner at the end of the gun at Lincoln's head. It says bang, and it has President Obama's face there. Okay. And the message that I did, I have another video. It's a banner gun. There's a gun. They know that this gun is here. Whoever hung this banner here, which had no right to put this banner here in my mind, they knew that there was a gun here. So what's showing you is that a banner shot out of a gun. And that's what this is right here. And it's stating, in my mind, that the same thing that Lincoln got is the same thing that President Obama is getting. Now, it's talking about global warming there, but I don't think that that's the actual message. See my other video. I'm running out of time. And this is what it looks like right there. And this is a Derringer, and there's the banner being shot out. I'm going to end this video there, people, because I don't know how long I got. So I'm going to stop, okay? I'm going to stop there. Let me shut this down.